Human mechanic found 2 dragons tangled in his shop. The next day, dragon elders knocked on his door. Before we dive into this story, drop a quick hi in the comments and tell me where you're watching from. It really helps support the channel. In the dusty outskirts of New Meridian, the last human settlement on a terraformed Mars, Tyler Grant's mechanical workshop stood as a testament to human ingenuity and stubbornness, a place where the impossible was fixed daily and where Tyler's life was about to change forever. The sound of metal clanging against metal echoed throughout Tyler Grant's workshop as he hammered out a dent in the hovercar's side panel. Sweat dripped from his brow, stinging his eyes, but he didn't stop. The 45-year-old mechanic had been working on this particular vehicle for the past 6 hours, and he was determined to finish before nightfall. His reputation in New Meridian depended on it. Just a little more, he muttered to himself, wiping his forehead with a grease-stained rag. The workshop was cluttered with spare parts, tools, and half-finished projects. Hovercrafts in various states of repair hung from ceiling mounts, while ground vehicles occupied most of the floor space. It wasn't the most organized place, but Tyler knew where everything was, most of the time. New Meridian had been established 50 years ago as humanity's first permanent settlement on Mars. The planet had been partially terraformed, making the atmosphere breathable, though still thin by Earth standards. The settlement had grown from a scientific outpost to a thriving community of 30,000 people, a mix of scientists, engineers, miners, and support personnel. What made New Meridian unique, however, wasn't just its status as humanity's foothold on Mars, but that it was also the first place where humans had made contact with an interstellar species, the Draconis. The Draconis had arrived 20 years ago, their massive ships appearing suddenly in Mars orbit. The initial panic had given way to cautious diplomacy and eventually, a mutually beneficial relationship. The Draconis were a spacefaring species that resembled Earth's mythical dragons, massive, scaled beings with wings, capable of breathing fire through a complex chemical reaction in their bodies. They were also highly intelligent, with technology far beyond human capabilities. A trade agreement had been established. The Draconis provided advanced technology, while humans offered something the aliens found inexplicably valuable: human creativity and problem-solving. For reasons humans didn't fully understand, the Draconis were fascinated by human ingenuity, particularly in mechanical fields. This had led to an unusual arrangement where some Draconis would bring their technology to human mechanics when their own engineers couldn't solve particular problems. Tyler, however, had never worked on Draconis technology. He stuck to human vehicles, which were complicated enough. He'd seen Draconis walking through New Meridian streets, their massive forms dwarfing humans as they ducked into specially designed buildings. He'd even spoken to a few who'd wandered into his shop out of curiosity, but he'd always politely directed them to the specialized Draconis human workshop on the other side of the settlement. As he gave the hovercar's panel one final tap with his hammer, Tyler heard a strange noise from outside. It was a mix between a roar and a screech, followed by a thunderous crash that shook the entire workshop. Tools fell from the walls, and dust rained down from the ceiling. What the hell? Tyler dropped his hammer and rushed to the front of the shop. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the Martian landscape. The sky had that peculiar orange-pink hue unique to Mars evenings. The noise came again, louder this time, followed by another crash. It was coming from around the back of his workshop, where he kept his larger tools and the waste recycling units. Grabbing a heavy wrench, the closest thing to a weapon he had, Tyler cautiously made his way around the building. As he turned the corner, he froze in his tracks, the wrench nearly slipping from his suddenly sweaty palm. 2 Draconis were entangled in what appeared to be a heap of metal cables, pipes, and what looked like pieces of their own technology. One was a deep crimson color with gold markings along its spine, while the other was midnight blue with silver patterns on its wings. Both were thrashing wildly, their massive tails whipping around dangerously, knocking into Tyler's equipment shed and sending pieces of machinery flying. "Hey, stop! You're destroying my stuff," Tyler shouted before he could think better of it. Both Draconis froze, their reptilian heads swiveling in unison to stare at him. Tyler suddenly felt very small and very vulnerable. Each Draconis was at least 20 feet long from snout to tail tip, with wingspans nearly twice that. Even tangled and apparently stuck, they were intimidating. The Crimson One made a rumbling sound that Tyler recognized as the Draconis language. The translation devices that most Draconis carried when interacting with humans were nowhere to be seen, probably tangled in the mess with them. "I can't understand you," Tyler said, taking a cautious step forward. "Do you speak English?" The midnight blue Draconis let out a huff that sent a small jet of flame into the air. "Yes, human. We speak your language," it said, its voice deep and resonant, with an odd harmonic quality that all Draconis voices had. "We require assistance." Tyler looked at the tangled mess of dragons and technology. "I can see that. What happened? And why are you in my backyard?" The Crimson Draconis twisted its neck to look at Tyler more directly. Its eyes were like molten gold, with vertical pupils that narrowed as it focused on him. "We were testing a new propulsion system for our personal transport units. There was a disagreement about the correct calibration. Veril insisted on increasing the thermal output beyond safe parameters," the blue one said, shooting what Tyler could only interpret as a glare at its companion. And Celine refused to acknowledge that her stabilization matrix calculations were flawed. The Crimson One, apparently Veril, retorted. "The system would have worked perfectly if—" "Enough," Tyler interrupted, running a hand through his hair in exasperation. "I don't care whose fault it was. What matters is that you've crashed into my workshop and destroyed half my outdoor equipment." Both Draconis had the decency to look somewhat abashed, lowering their massive heads slightly. "We apologize for the damage, human," Celine said. "We will provide compensation." Fine. Tyler waved a hand dismissively. "But first, let's get you untangled before you cause any more destruction." Tyler approached cautiously, trying to make sense of the mess. The Draconis had apparently been testing some kind of personal flying device, something like jetpacks, but far more complex. The devices had malfunctioned, sending the Draconis crashing into his workshop. Now the machinery was entangled with the Draconis themselves, cables wrapped around their limbs and wings, metal components wedged between scales. "This is going to take a while," Tyler muttered, setting down his wrench and pulling a utility knife from his pocket. "I'm going to have to cut some of these cables. Try not to move." For the next 2 hours, Tyler worked methodically to free the Draconis. It was delicate work. One wrong move could injure one of them, and Tyler had no desire to find out what an angry, injured dragon was like. The Draconis technology was unlike anything he'd seen before, with components that seemed to shift and change as he manipulated them. "Be careful with that modulation array," Veril warned as Tyler was about to cut through what looked like a bundle of fiber optic cables. "It's connected to a power cell that could destabilize if severed incorrectly." Tyler paused, knife hovering above the cables. "Then how do I disconnect it safely?" "There's a release mechanism at the junction point," Celine explained. "It looks like a small hexagonal node." Tyler spotted the node and carefully manipulated it, surprised when the entire array detached with a soft click. "Huh. Neat design." As he continued working, Tyler found himself becoming fascinated by the Draconis technology. Despite the damage, he could see the elegant engineering principles at work. The devices were a seamless blend of mechanical and what appeared to be biological components, working together in ways he couldn't fully comprehend. "What exactly were you trying to accomplish with these things?" Tyler asked as he unwound a particularly stubborn cable from around Veril's left foreleg. "We were developing enhanced personal flight augmentation systems," Veril explained. "Our natural flight capabilities are limited in the thin Martian atmosphere. These systems were designed to compensate." "The problem," Celine added, wincing as Tyler carefully extracted a metal shard that had wedged between her scales, "was integrating the propulsion system with our natural wing movements. The neural interface was not properly calibrated." Tyler nodded, though he only understood about half of what they were saying. Neural interfaces were far beyond his expertise. He was a mechanic who fixed hovercars and terraforming equipment, not a neural engineer. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Tyler managed to free both Draconis. They carefully extracted themselves from the remaining debris, stretching their wings and limbs cautiously. "Thank you, human," Veril said, bowing his massive head slightly. Your assistance was unexpectedly valuable. Yes, thank you, Celine echoed, her midnight blue scales shimmering in the workshop's outdoor lights. Most humans would have called the authorities or fled. Tyler shrugged, wiping his hands on a rag. I'm a mechanic. Fixing things is what I do. He gestured to the scattered debris. Though I usually fix vehicles, not dragons. We are not dragons, Veril corrected. That is a mythical earth creature. We are Draconis. You're 20-foot flying reptiles that breathe fire, Tyler said dryly. Close enough. To his surprise, Celine made a rumbling sound that he realized was laughter. He has a point, Veril. Veril snorted, sending a small puff of smoke into the air. Regardless, we are in your debt, human. The name's Tyler. Tyler Grant. He looked around at the destruction. And considering the mess you've made, yeah, you are in my debt. We will return tomorrow to make proper reparations, Veril said. The hour is late, and we must report this incident to our elders. Tyler raised an eyebrow. Elders? Our leadership council, Celine explained. They will need to be informed of the propulsion system failure, and of your assistance. Fine, whatever. Just try not to crash into any other buildings on your way back, Tyler said, suddenly feeling the exhaustion of the day catching up with him. The two Draconis gathered what they could of their damaged equipment. With surprising gentleness for creatures of their size, they bowed to Tyler once more before spreading their massive wings. The Martian sunset glinted off their scales as they took flight, moving somewhat awkwardly in the thin atmosphere, but still with a grace that belied their massive size. Tyler watched them disappear into the darkening sky before turning back to survey the damage to his workshop. Tools were scattered everywhere, his equipment shed was half destroyed, and there was a Draconis-sized dent in the side of the building. Insurance is never going to believe this, he muttered, kicking a piece of alien debris. With a sigh, he decided the cleanup could wait until morning. He locked up what remained of his workshop and headed to his small apartment located above the garage. As he lay in bed that night, Tyler couldn't help but wonder what proper reparations from the Draconis would entail. He'd heard stories of humans who had done favors for the aliens receiving advanced technology or rare materials as payment. But he'd also heard rumors of more unusual forms of gratitude. Draconis had different concepts of debt and honor than humans. Whatever tomorrow brought, Tyler had a feeling his simple life as a mechanic was about to get a lot more complicated. The next morning dawned with the peculiar pink-orange glow that characterized Martian sunrises. Tyler had been up since before first light, unable to sleep well after the previous evening's excitement. He'd made himself a strong cup of coffee and was surveying the damage to his workshop in the early morning light when he heard it, a sound like distant thunder that gradually grew louder. At first, he thought it might be a dust storm approaching, a common enough occurrence on Mars despite the terraforming. But as the sound grew closer, he realized it was rhythmic, like the beating of massive wings. Tyler stepped out of his workshop and looked up. What he saw made him drop his coffee mug, which shattered on the ground unnoticed. Descending from the pinkish sky were not 2, but 7 Draconis. Veril and Celine were easily recognizable, but they were now accompanied by 5 others, each more impressive than the last. 3 of the newcomers were larger than any Draconis Tyler had ever seen, with scales in various hues of gold, bronze, and deep emerald green. Their wings spanned at least 50 feet, casting enormous shadows as they circled down toward his workshop. What the hell? Tyler muttered for the second time in 24 hours. The Draconis landed with surprising delicacy, their massive claws barely disturbing the rusty Martian soil. The largest of them, a golden-scaled behemoth with eyes like polished amber, stepped forward. Tyler Grant, the golden Draconis said, its voice so deep that Tyler felt it rumble in his chest. I am Elder Kareth of the Draconis High Council. These are Elders Morvith and Thalia. He indicated the bronze and emerald Draconis respectively. Tyler swallowed hard, suddenly very aware that he was standing before what amounted to alien royalty in his oil-stained work clothes, with bed hair and coffee breath. Nice to meet you, he managed, giving an awkward half-bow that he immediately regretted. Is this about the crash yesterday? Because they already promised to pay for the damages, and this is about far more than mere property damage, Elder Thalia interrupted, her voice surprisingly melodic for such a massive creature. Veril and Celine have informed us of your assistance. You showed exceptional skill and courage. Tyler blinked in confusion. I just helped them get untangled. Anyone would have done the same. The third elder, Morvith, made a rumbling sound that might have been amusement. On the contrary, most humans would have fled or called your security forces, and few would have been able to safely dismantle our technology without injury to themselves or to our kind. Tyler shifted uncomfortably under the gaze of 7 pairs of reptilian eyes. Look, I appreciate the visit, but if this is about compensation, you really don't need to bring out the big guns. I just need enough to fix my equipment shed and... We are not here merely to compensate you for damages, Elder Kareth interrupted. We are here to make you an offer. Before Tyler could ask what kind of offer, Elder Kareth turned to the 2 youngest Draconis who had accompanied them, sleek, silver-scaled creatures who appeared to be carrying something between them. They stepped forward and carefully set down what looked like an ornate chest made of a metal Tyler didn't recognize. Elder Thalia gestured toward the chest. Open it. With hesitation, Tyler approached the chest. It had no visible locks or hinges, just smooth, polished metal with intricate engravings that seemed to shift and change as he looked at them. As he reached out to touch it, the top of the chest simply melted away, revealing its contents. Inside was what appeared to be a suit of some kind, unlike anything Tyler had ever seen. It was primarily black, with intricate silver and blue patterns that looked almost like circuitry running throughout the material. It wasn't bulky like a spacesuit, but sleek and form-fitting. What is this? Tyler asked, resisting the urge to touch it. It is a Draconis human interface suit, Veril explained, stepping forward. One of only 5 in existence. It allows a human to work directly with our technology, bridging the gap between our neural interfaces and human physiology. Tyler looked from the suit to the assembled Draconis, confusion written across his face. And you're giving this to me? What? Not giving, Elder Morvith corrected. Offering, along with a proposition. Elder Kareth lowered his massive head until his eyes were level with Tyler's. The Draconis breath was hot, with a faint smell of cinnamon and smoke. Tyler Grant, your handling of our technology yesterday revealed something rare, an intuitive understanding of principles that most humans struggle to grasp. The way you recognized and disarmed the modulation array without prior knowledge impressed Veril and Celine greatly. It wasn't that impressive, Tyler protested. They told me what to do. They told you where to find the release mechanism, Elder Thalia said. But you understood its function instantly, without explanation. You recognized patterns in our technology that should have been alien to you. Tyler rubbed the back of his neck, uncomfortable with the praise. I've been fixing machines my whole life. You see enough of them, you start to recognize how things work, even if you've never seen that exact model before. Precisely, Elder Kareth said, something like satisfaction in his voice. This intuitive understanding is exactly what we seek. Seek for what? Tyler asked. For our new initiative, Celine explained. We wish to create a joint Draconis human engineering program. Not merely human mechanics working on Draconis technology under supervision, as is currently done, but true collaboration. Tyler looked again at the suit in the chest. And you want me to be part of this program? We want you to lead it, Elder Kareth corrected. From the human side. For a moment, Tyler was speechless. Him? Leading an alien engineering program? He was just a mechanic who fixed hovercars and terraforming equipment. He'd never even been to college, having learned his trade through apprenticeship and years of hands-on experience. I think you've got the wrong guy, he finally said. I'm not a scientist or an engineer. I'm just a mechanic. That is precisely why you are the right choice, Elder Morvith said. Our scientists have worked with your scientists for years with limited success. They think too similarly, both bound by theoretical frameworks. But you solve problems differently. Practically, intuitively. The way you approached our Tangled technology yesterday was illuminating, Veril added. You saw not complex theoretical systems, but practical problems with practical solutions. Tyler ran a hand through his hair, trying to process what was happening. So you want me to what? Fix your spaceships. We want you to help design the next generation of them, Elder Thalia said. And other technologies. A true melding of Draconis and human approaches. Tyler looked at the assembled Draconis, then back at the interface suit. Part of him, a large part, wanted to refuse. He was comfortable in his life as a mechanic. It was predictable, understandable. What they were offering was anything but. "What if I say no?" he asked. "Then we compensate you for the damage to your workshop, as promised, and leave you in peace," Elder Kareth said. "This is an offer, not a demand." Tyler nodded slowly, appreciating that they weren't trying to pressure him. "And if I say yes, what exactly would I be committing to?" "Initially, training with the interface suit," Celine explained. "Learning to work with our technology directly. Then, once you are comfortable, joining our engineering facility on Phobos." "Phobos? The moon?" Tyler asked, surprised. Veril nodded. "We have established our primary research facility there. It provides more space than is available in New Meridian." Tyler could imagine. The Draconis were massive creatures. Their facilities must be enormous. "How long would this commitment be?" he asked. "We propose an initial period of 1 Earth year," Elder Kareth said. "After which, you may choose to continue or return to your current occupation, with our gratitude and compensation either way." Tyler looked around at his workshop. It wasn't much, but it was his. He'd built it from nothing after coming to Mars 10 years ago, seeking a fresh start after his divorce back on Earth. He had regular customers who depended on him, a comfortable routine. But he also had to admit that lately, he'd been feeling restless. The same repairs, day after day. The same problems to solve. Nothing new, nothing challenging. And now these aliens were offering him the chance to work with technology beyond human understanding. To potentially help create something new, something that could benefit both species. "I'd need time to think about it," he said finally. Elder Kareth inclined his massive head. "Of course, such a decision should not be made hastily. We will return in 3 days for your answer." Tyler expected them to take the chest and the interface suit with them, but Elder Thalia gestured to it. "The suit remains with you, regardless of your decision. Consider it a token of our appreciation for your assistance yesterday." Tyler's eyes widened. "That's generous. Too generous for just helping out." "The suit is valuable, yes," Elder Morvith acknowledged. "But its true value lies in its use. If you choose not to join our program, it will be little more than an interesting artifact." Tyler couldn't argue with that logic. Still, he suspected that such a suit would fetch a small fortune even as a curiosity. The Draconis prepared to depart, their massive wings unfurling. Elder Kareth fixed Tyler with one final look. 3 days, Tyler Grant. Consider carefully. This opportunity will not come again. With that, the 7 Draconis took to the sky, their massive forms quickly becoming distant specks against the Martian morning. Tyler stood in his workshop yard for a long time after they left, staring at the open chest and the strange suit inside. His life had been simple yesterday morning. Now, everything was suddenly complicated. With a sigh, he closed the chest, or tried to. Having no idea how the top had disappeared in the first place, he wasn't sure how to make it reappear. After a few awkward attempts at waving his hands over it, he gave up and carried the open chest inside his workshop, setting it in a corner where it wouldn't be disturbed. He had repairs scheduled for the day. A colony administrator's hovercar needed a new levitation system, and one of the miners had a problem with their excavation equipment. Normal, everyday work. But as Tyler tried to focus on these familiar tasks, his mind kept drifting back to the Draconis offer and the strange suit in the corner. By mid-afternoon, Tyler had made little progress on his scheduled repairs. His concentration was shot, his thoughts continually returning to the Draconis and their proposition. Finally, after botching a simple calibration for the 3rd time, he set down his tools with a frustrated sigh. "This is ridiculous," he muttered to himself. "I can't work like this." He walked over to the chest and looked down at the interface suit. It seemed to shimmer slightly under the workshop lights, the circuit-like patterns occasionally pulsing with a faint blue glow. Against his better judgment, Tyler reached out and touched the material. It felt strange, not quite solid, almost like a liquid that had been frozen in place while retaining some of its fluid properties. It was cool to the touch, but quickly warmed to his body temperature. As his fingers traced one of the silver patterns, it briefly glowed brighter, as if responding to his touch. "Okay, that's weird," Tyler said, pulling his hand back. A flicker of movement caught his eye. One of the smaller silver lines on the suit had detached itself from the main pattern and was slowly crawling across the material like a tiny silver snake. As Tyler watched, dumbfounded, it reached the edge of the suit and then continued onto the metal of the chest, then down to the floor, and finally up Tyler's boot. Hey! Tyler jumped back, but the silver line followed, climbing up his pant leg. There was no sensation associated with it. He couldn't feel it moving across his clothing, but it was definitely heading upward. Get off me. Before he could do anything else, the silver line reached his hand and, in a movement almost too fast to follow, wrapped itself around his wrist. For a brief moment, there was a warm, tingling sensation, and then the line seemed to sink into his skin, disappearing entirely. Tyler stared at his wrist in horror. The skin looked normal, no mark, no indication that anything had penetrated it, but he had just watched an alien, something, burrow into his body. What the hell was that? He gasped, rubbing his wrist frantically. Neural interface initialization, said a voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Tyler spun around, searching for the source of the voice. Who said that? I am Aria, Adaptive Responsive Interface Assistant, the voice replied. It was neither male nor female, but somehow both and neither, with the same harmonic quality that characterized Draconis' speech. I am the integrated assistance system of your Draconis human interface suit. Where are you? Tyler demanded, still looking around the empty workshop. I am currently communicating directly with your auditory processing centers through the neural link established by the interface tendril. The voice, Aria, explained calmly. The what? That silver thing that just crawled into my arm. Correct. The interface tendril establishes a temporary neural connection, allowing for communication and basic interface functions. Full integration requires donning the complete suit. Tyler rubbed his wrist again, fighting a wave of panic. Get it out. Get it out of me right now. Please remain calm, Tyler Grant. Aria said, still infuriatingly serene. The interface tendril is non-invasive and temporary. It will dissolve harmlessly within 6 hours if the full suit is not activated. There is no danger. No danger? You've got alien technology inside my body. Tyler shouted. Technically, the tendril is not inside your body, Aria corrected. It has established a connection to your peripheral nervous system through dermal contact. No penetration of the skin was required. That didn't make Tyler feel much better. The Draconis didn't mention anything about neural interfaces or tethers or whatever this is. The neural interface is a fundamental component of the suit's functionality, Aria explained. It was likely assumed that this was understood. Tyler took a deep breath, trying to calm himself. Panicking wouldn't help. Okay, fine. So this, tendril, will dissolve in 6 hours if I don't put on the suit. Correct. And it's not doing anything else to me right now? Just letting me hear you. The initial connection also allows me to monitor basic biometrics such as heart rate and stress levels, which are currently elevated. Additionally, it permits me to access surface-level thought patterns, allowing for more natural communication. You can read my mind? Tyler asked, alarmed again. Not in the way you are conceptualizing, Aria replied. I can detect intention and general emotional states to facilitate communication. I cannot access memories, complex thoughts, or anything you consciously wish to keep private. Tyler wasn't entirely convinced, but arguing with a voice in his head seemed pointless. Fine. Just don't do anything else without warning me first. Acknowledged, Tyler Grant. Would you like a basic orientation to the interface suit's capabilities while we wait for the tendril to dissolve? Tyler hesitated. Part of him wanted nothing more to do with the suit or Aria. But another part, the curious mechanic who had always loved taking things apart to see how they worked, was intrigued. Just information, he clarified. No more tendrils or neural whatevers. Confirmed. No additional connections will be established without your explicit consent. Tyler pulled up a stool and sat down, still occasionally rubbing his wrist even though there was nothing to feel. All right then, Aria. Tell me about this suit. For the next hour, Aria explained the basics of the interface suit. It was, as the Draconis had said, designed to bridge the gap between human physiology and Draconis technology. The Draconis primarily interacted with their technology through neural interfaces, direct mind-to-machine connections. Humans, lacking the specific neural structures that Draconis possessed, couldn't interface with their technology directly. The suit acted as a translator of sorts, converting human neural patterns into signals that Draconis systems could understand, and vice versa. So it's basically a really fancy keyboard and monitor, Tyler summarized. That is a significant oversimplification, but not entirely inaccurate, Arya replied, with what Tyler thought might be a hint of reproach in its synthetic voice. What else does it do? Tyler asked, genuinely curious now. The suit enhances physical capabilities to a degree, providing increased strength and endurance to compensate for the difference between human and Draconis physiologies. It offers protection from environmental hazards, and it facilitates direct communication with Draconis, bypassing language barriers. Wait, so with the suit on, I could understand Draconis language without a translator? Correct. The neural interface would process their speech patterns directly. Tyler whistled, impressed despite himself. That's actually pretty cool. The suit also provides access to the Draconis Information Network, enabling research, communication, and data analysis capabilities far beyond current human technology. Now that caught Tyler's attention. The Draconis were known to have vast stores of knowledge, scientific, historical, technological, that they shared only selectively with humans. Direct access to that would be invaluable. And the Draconis are just giving me this? Even if I say no to their offer. The suit remains functional only while in proximity to active Draconis technology or Draconis themselves, Arya explained. Without regular connection to Draconis systems, it will enter dormancy after approximately 30 days. It can be reactivated, but only through direct Draconis intervention. There was the catch. The suit would be useless unless he worked with the Draconis. So it's not really a gift so much as a very fancy job application. I am not programmed to interpret Draconis motivations, Arya replied diplomatically. Tyler snorted. Yeah, I bet you're not. He stood up and stretched, surprised to find that the sun was already setting. He'd spent the entire afternoon talking with Arya. This temporary connection will dissolve in approximately 4 hours and 23 minutes, Arya informed him. Would you like to experience further capabilities before that occurs? Tyler hesitated. What did you have in mind? A full demonstration would require donning the suit. However, I can establish a limited visual interface without further neural connection. Tyler considered this. He was curious, but still wary. No more connections. Just show me. Acknowledged. Please look at any blank surface. Tyler turned toward the workshop wall, which was relatively clean compared to the rest of the place. Focus on the wall and imagine a display screen, Arya instructed. Feeling somewhat foolish, Tyler did as instructed. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, suddenly, a rectangle of light appeared on the wall, not projected from anywhere, but as if the wall itself had transformed into a display. Within the rectangle was what looked like a three-dimensional schematic of the interface suit, rotating slowly to show all angles. Holy, Tyler trailed off, stepping closer to examine the display. It was incredibly detailed, showing not just the exterior of the suit but also internal components, layer by layer. How are you doing this? The neural interface is stimulating your visual cortex, Arya explained. You are not seeing actual light projected on the wall, but rather experiencing a controlled hallucination integrated with your visual field. You're making me hallucinate? Tyler asked, alarmed again. In a technical sense, yes, but with precision and control. The process is similar to how your brain normally processes visual information, merely with an external source providing the input. Tyler waved his hand through the display, half expecting to feel something. Of course, his hand passed through unimpeded. There was nothing physically there. Yet the image remained perfectly clear and three-dimensional, reacting to his movement by rotating to maintain its orientation toward him. This is incredible, he admitted, and a little freaky. The full neural interface would allow for more immersive and interactive experiences, including tactile feedback. Tyler shook his head. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. He studied the rotating schematic, his mechanic's mind automatically analyzing its structure and function. Despite the alien nature of the technology, he could recognize certain principles: power distribution systems, sensory arrays, articulation points for mobility. Can you show me how it works? The internal systems, I mean. The display changed, zooming in on what appeared to be the suit's core systems. Tiny flows of energy, represented as streams of light, moved through circuit-like pathways throughout the suit. Text labels appeared next to various components, though they were in a script Tyler didn't recognize. Can you translate the labels to English? The alien script shimmered and transformed into English text. Power regulation matrix, neural interface node, environmental adaptation system, and dozens of other technical terms appeared across the schematic. For the next 2 hours, Tyler lost himself in studying the suit's systems. Arya explained each component, its function, how it integrated with the whole. Despite the advanced nature of the technology, Tyler found he could understand the fundamental principles. It was like learning a new dialect of a language he already spoke, the language of machines. By the time Arya announced that the temporary neural connection would dissolve in 30 minutes, Tyler had developed a basic understanding of how the suit functioned. It was, he had to admit, a marvel of engineering. The way it integrated biological and mechanical systems, the elegant solutions to complex problems of interface and adaptation. It was unlike anything humans had developed. So if I put on the suit, Tyler asked, I could actually work with Draconis technology directly? Fix their ships, help design new systems? Correct. The suit would allow you to interact with Draconis systems as naturally as you interact with human technology once you become accustomed to the interface. Tyler nodded slowly, his mind racing with possibilities. The thought of working with technology so advanced, of learning new principles and techniques, was undeniably appealing to the mechanic in him. But it would mean leaving his workshop, his business, the life he'd built for himself on Mars. It would mean stepping into the unknown, placing his trust in aliens he barely knew. I need to think about this, he said finally. That is understandable, Arya replied. The Draconis elders have allowed 3 days for your decision. The visual display on the wall faded away, leaving just the ordinary workshop wall. Tyler felt a momentary sense of loss. It had been fascinating to study the suit's systems in such detail. The neural connection will dissolve in approximately 27 minutes, Arya informed him. Is there anything else you would like to know before then? Tyler thought for a moment. Just one thing. Why me? Really? There must be thousands of mechanics and engineers more qualified than I am. There was a brief pause before Arya responded. I can only speculate based on available data. However, your actions yesterday demonstrated 3 qualities the Draconis highly value: practical problem-solving ability, adaptability, and what they term intuitive resonance, the capacity to understand unfamiliar systems without formal instruction. What about the fact that I'm just a regular mechanic, not some fancy engineer with degrees and credentials? Draconis society does not place the same emphasis on formal credentials as human society, Arya explained. They value demonstrated capability over documented qualifications. Your practical expertise aligns with their approach to technology development. That made a certain amount of sense, Tyler supposed. Still, it seemed like a huge risk for them to take, placing such advanced technology in the hands of someone like him. As if reading his thoughts, which, Tyler realized with discomfort, it probably was, Arya added. It may also be relevant that this initiative represents a new approach for the Draconis. Previous collaboration attempts focused on theoretical research with human scientists. This appears to be an experiment in practical application. So I'm a test case, Tyler said. They want to see if a hands-on approach works better than the theoretical one. That assessment aligns with available data, Arya confirmed. Tyler sighed and ran a hand through his hair. Well, at least that makes more sense than them thinking I'm some kind of mechanical genius. I cannot comment on Draconis assessments of your abilities, Arya said. However, your understanding of the interface suit systems progressed 42% faster than the baseline expectation for initial human exposure. Before Tyler could process that unexpected compliment, Arya continued. The neural connection will dissolve in 15 minutes. Temporary storage of this conversation will remain in the suit's memory, accessible if you choose to re-establish connection in the future. Tyler nodded, suddenly realizing how tired he was. The excitement and stress of the day, combined with the mental exertion of learning about the suit, had drained him. Thanks for the information, Arya. It's been enlightening. You are welcome, Tyler Grant. The Draconis elders will return in 3 days for your decision. With that, Arya's presence in Tyler's mind began to fade. The voice became fainter, as if moving away down a long corridor, until it disappeared entirely. Tyler felt a brief tingling sensation in his wrist, and then nothing, no sign that anything unusual had happened at all. He looked at the interface suit, still lying in the open chest. It no longer glowed or pulsed. It looked almost like an ordinary wetsuit, albeit one made of an unrecognizable material. Tyler closed the workshop for the day and headed up to his apartment. After a quick dinner, he fell into bed, exhausted. But sleep didn't come easily. His mind raced with images of Draconis technology, of ships and stations and devices beyond human understanding. And amid it all, a question kept repeating. Should he accept their offer? The next morning, Tyler woke with the Martian sun streaming through his bedroom window. For a moment, the events of the previous 2 days seemed like a dream. Then he looked over at his desk, where he'd placed the small silver scale that had fallen from Celine during the untangling process. It gleamed in the sunlight, a tangible reminder that everything had been real. He went down to his workshop early, determined to catch up on the repairs he'd neglected yesterday. As he worked, his mind continued to churn over the Draconis offer. On one hand, it was the opportunity of a lifetime. To work with technology decades or even centuries beyond what humans had developed, to potentially contribute to breakthroughs that could benefit both species. It was more than he'd ever imagined possible for himself. On the other hand, it meant leaving behind everything familiar. His workshop, his customers, the life he'd built. And for what? To be some kind of experiment for the Draconis, testing whether human intuition could contribute to their technological development? By midday, Tyler had made good progress on his backlog of repairs, but was no closer to a decision about the Draconis offer. He decided he needed a break, some perspective. Locking up the workshop, he headed into the center of New Meridian. The settlement had grown significantly in the decade Tyler had lived there. What had started as a collection of prefabricated habitat modules had evolved into a proper town, with permanent buildings, parks with transplanted earth vegetation, and bustling markets. It still had the frontier feel of a colony, but with increasing touches of home. Tyler made his way to his favorite cafe, a small place called Red Soil that served the best coffee on Mars, which, admittedly, wasn't saying much given the limited options. The cafe was relatively quiet at this hour, with just a few customers scattered at tables. As he sipped his coffee, Tyler noticed a group of humans and a single Draconis engaged in animated conversation at a large table in the corner. The Draconis was smaller than Veryl or Celine, with scales in shades of copper and bronze. The humans, 3 men and 2 women, wore the uniforms of the New Meridian Science Division. Tyler watched them curiously. This was the type of collaboration that already existed, scientists discussing theories, sharing knowledge under controlled circumstances. Was that really so different from what the elders were proposing for him? Yes, he decided. It was fundamentally different. Those scientists were exchanging ideas, but they weren't directly working with Draconis technology. They weren't interfacing with it through neural connections or helping to design new systems. They were colleagues having an academic discussion, not true collaborators in creation. As Tyler was about to leave, the door to the cafe opened, and a familiar figure entered, Lauren Bennett, one of the colony's administrators and a semi-regular customer at his workshop. She spotted him and walked over, smiling. "Tyler, just the man I wanted to see. How's my hover car coming along?" Tyler winced, remembering that her vehicle was one of the repairs he'd neglected. "It's in progress. Should be done tomorrow." Lauren raised an eyebrow but didn't press the issue. "Mind if I join you?" Tyler gestured to the empty chair across from him. Lauren was in her early 40s, with short dark hair and the efficient manner of someone who managed crises for a living. She'd been on Mars for 15 years, one of the original colony staff. "So," she said after ordering her own coffee, "I hear you had some excitement at your workshop yesterday. Something about Draconis elders paying you a visit?" Tyler stared at her in surprise. "How did you?" "I'm a colony administrator, Tyler. When 3 of the highest-ranking Draconis land in our settlement without prior notification, I get informed." She leaned forward, lowering her voice. What I don't get informed about is why they were visiting a mechanic's workshop on the outskirts of town. Tyler hesitated, unsure how much to share. The Draconis hadn't sworn him to secrecy, but they also hadn't indicated that their offer was public knowledge. I helped out a couple of Draconis who had an accident near my shop, he said carefully. The elders came to thank me. Lauren's expression made it clear she wasn't buying his vague explanation. Tyler, I've been dealing with the Draconis for 15 years. They don't send elders to thank someone for a minor favor. What's really going on? Tyler sighed, realizing there was little point in trying to hide it. If the Draconis offer was supposed to be secret, they'd done a poor job of being discreet with their visit. They offered me a job, he admitted. Working with Draconis technology directly, helping to design new systems. They gave me some kind of interface suit and said they want me to join their facility on Phobos. Lauren's eyes widened. They gave you a DH interface suit? There are only a handful of those in existence. You know about them? Tyler asked, surprised. I've heard rumors. Experimental technology that lets humans work directly with Draconis systems. She shook her head in amazement. But they're incredibly selective about who gets access to those. Most of the science division would kill for the opportunity. Yeah, well, they gave one to me, and I'm not even sure why. Tyler took a sip of his now lukewarm coffee. They said something about my practical approach, how I fixed their tangled mess without understanding the theory behind it. Lauren was silent for a moment, studying him. You know, that actually makes sense. It does. The Draconis have been frustrated with the pace of the joint scientific projects, she explained. I've sat in on some of the diplomatic meetings. They think our scientists are too cautious, too focused on understanding every aspect of a system before attempting to modify or improve it. The Draconis approach is more intuitive, I suppose you could say. They believe in learning by doing. Tyler thought about how he approached repairs, starting with what he could observe, making adjustments, seeing the results, and then adjusting again until he solved the problem. It was rarely a linear process of theory followed by application. So what are you going to do? Lauren asked. Are you going to accept? I don't know, Tyler admitted. It's a huge change. And I've got responsibilities here, customers who depend on me, the workshop. The workshop could be sold or leased, Lauren pointed out. And there are other mechanics in New Meridian who could take over your customer base. It's not just that, Tyler said. It's everything is familiar here. I know what I'm doing, what each day will bring. Working with the Draconis would be a complete unknown. Lauren looked at him thoughtfully. Can I ask you something personal, Tyler? He shrugged. Sure. Why did you come to Mars in the first place? The question caught him off guard. You know why? After the divorce, I needed a fresh start. Exactly. You left everything familiar behind. Earth, your previous job, your whole life. To come to a partially terraformed planet with a thin atmosphere and dust storms that can last for weeks. That wasn't seeking familiarity, Tyler. That was seeking adventure, a challenge. Tyler couldn't argue with her logic. Coming to Mars had been a huge risk, but also the most rewarding decision of his life. And now, Lauren continued, you've been here for 10 years. Your workshop runs smoothly. You can fix most of the vehicles in the colony with your eyes closed. When was the last time you faced a mechanical problem that really challenged you? Tyler thought about it and had to admit it had been a while. Most repairs were routine now, variations on problems he'd solved dozens of times before. The Draconis are offering you another fresh start, Lauren said gently. Another challenge. Isn't that why you came to Mars in the first place? To do something new, something that pushed your limits? Her words struck home. Tyler had indeed come to Mars seeking a new beginning. A challenge that would force him to grow beyond the safe, familiar life he'd built on Earth. And for a while, Mars had provided that. But Lauren was right. The challenge had faded as he'd mastered his new environment. I guess I'm just scared, he admitted. Working with alien technology through neural interfaces? That's a whole different level from fixing hover cars. Of course it's scary, Lauren agreed. But think about how scared you were before coming to Mars, and look at you now. Thriving on another planet, running your own business. She smiled. You adapt, Tyler. It's what you do. Tyler nodded slowly, considering her words. I've got until tomorrow evening to decide. Well, for what it's worth, I think you should take the chance, Lauren said, finishing her coffee. Opportunities like this don't come along often. And if it doesn't work out, your workshop will still be here. Mars isn't going anywhere. After Lauren left, Tyler remained at the cafe, turning their conversation over in his mind. She had made some good points. He had come to Mars seeking challenge and growth, and now he was hesitating at the prospect of another such opportunity. Was it because he'd grown more cautious with age, or had he simply become too comfortable, too set in his ways? As the afternoon wore on, Tyler walked through New Meridian, observing the mix of human and Draconis architecture, the way the two species had begun to integrate their approaches to building and design. Humans had learned from the Draconis' efficient use of space and resources, while the Draconis had adopted certain human aesthetic principles that they found intriguing. It was collaboration, but still at arm's length. Each species maintaining its own sphere, with careful points of contact and exchange. What the elders were proposing was something much more intimate, a true merging of approaches, with Tyler at the center of it. By the time he returned to his workshop in the evening, Tyler had made his decision. It wasn't without doubts or reservations, but he knew, deep down, what his answer would be. The next day passed quickly as Tyler prepared. He contacted other mechanics in New Meridian, arranging for them to take over his customer base. He spoke with his landlord about subleasing the workshop for a year, with the option to return after that if things didn't work out. He packed essential personal items, though the Draconis had assured him that all necessary equipment would be provided. As the Martian sun began to set on the third day, Tyler stood outside his workshop, waiting. The interface suit was back in its chest, which he'd managed to close after some experimentation, a simple matter of running his hand over the edge in a specific pattern, as it turned out. Right on schedule, he heard the now familiar sound of massive wings beating against the thin Martian atmosphere. This time, however, it was only 3 Draconis who descended from the pink-orange sky: Elder Kareth, Veril, and Celine. "Tyler Grant," Elder Kareth said as they landed, his massive golden form catching the last rays of the setting sun. "We have returned for your answer." Tyler took a deep breath, his decision crystallizing into certainty as he looked at the 3 aliens. "I accept your offer. I'll join your engineering program." A rumble of approval emanated from all 3 Draconis. Veril and Celine exchanged what Tyler interpreted as pleased glances. "You have chosen wisely," Elder Kareth said. "The path ahead will not be easy, but it holds great potential. For you, for us, and for the future of both our species." "I have conditions," Tyler said, surprising himself with his boldness. "If this doesn't work out, if after a few months I decide it's not for me, I want to be able to return to Mars with no hard feelings." Elder Kareth inclined his massive head. "That is acceptable. We seek willing collaboration, not reluctant service. And I want to understand everything I'm working with," Tyler continued. "Not just how to use it, but how it works. The principles behind it. That is precisely why you were chosen," Celine said. "Your desire to truly understand systems, not merely operate them, is a quality we value." Tyler nodded, satisfied. "Then I'm ready, or as ready as I'll ever be." "You have the interface suit?" Veril asked. Tyler patted the chest at his feet. "Right here." "Excellent. You will need it for the journey to Phobos." Elder Kareth looked to the sky, which was darkening rapidly as the sun disappeared below the horizon. "We depart tonight. Is this acceptable?" Tyler blinked in surprise. "Tonight? I thought I'd have a few days to wrap things up here. Is there something specific you require more time for?" Elder Kareth asked. Tyler considered this. He'd already arranged for his workshop and customers to be taken care of. His personal affairs were in order, and truthfully, delaying would only give his doubts more time to grow. "No, I guess not," he admitted. "Tonight works." "Very good," Elder Kareth said. "Prepare yourself and don the interface suit. We will transport you to our shuttle, which will take us to Phobos." Tyler looked at the 3 massive Draconis, then down at his own very human body. "Transport me? You don't mean..." Veril made that rumbling sound that Tyler now recognized as Draconis laughter. "Yes, we will carry you. The suit will protect you from the cold and thin atmosphere at higher altitudes, and make the experience more comfortable for both of us." Tyler wasn't sure comfortable was the word he'd use for being carried through the air by a giant dragon-like alien, but he supposed he was committed now. He picked up the chest and brought it inside the workshop. I'll, need some privacy to put this on, he said. Of course, Elder Kareth acknowledged. We shall wait here. Inside the workshop, Tyler opened the chest and looked at the interface suit. It seemed to respond to his presence, the circuit-like patterns beginning to pulse with that faint blue glow again. Here goes nothing, he muttered, picking up the suit. It was surprisingly light, almost weightless in his hands. As he examined it, trying to figure out how to put it on, he noticed there were no zippers, buttons, or other fasteners, just a seamless piece of the strange material. How am I supposed to? He began, but then gasped as the suit seemed to come alive in his hands. It literally flowed over his arms, spreading like liquid metal across his skin, under his clothes, conforming perfectly to his body. It was the strangest sensation he'd ever experienced, cool at first, then warming to his exact body temperature until he could barely feel it. Within seconds, the suit had covered him from neck to toe. His clothes remained on top of it, though they now felt oddly loose, as if the suit had somehow thinned his body slightly. That was different, Tyler said to the empty workshop. Interface suit integration complete, said Arya's voice in his mind, causing Tyler to start. Hello again, Tyler Grant. Arya, you're back. The neural interface has been re-established. Full functionality is now available. Tyler looked down at himself. Apart from the faint silver-blue lines visible at his wrists and neck, and the strange sensation of wearing a second skin, there was little outward sign of the advanced technology now integrated with his body. How does this protect me from the atmosphere at high altitudes? He asked. In response, the material of the suit shifted slightly, thickening in some areas and thinning in others. The suit adapts to environmental conditions, Arya explained. It will maintain optimal temperature, pressure, and oxygen levels regardless of external conditions. It can even provide limited protection in vacuum for short periods, though it is not designed as a full spacesuit. That's reassuring, I guess. Tyler took a deep breath, trying to calm his nerves. Anything else I should know before we go? The neural interface will provide guidance on how to position yourself for optimal safety during aerial transport, Arya said. I recommend allowing the suit's autonomic responses to assist with balance and stability. Tyler wasn't entirely sure what that meant, but he nodded anyway. Okay, let's do this. He stepped outside to find the three Draconis waiting patiently. Their eyes fixed on him immediately, and Tyler had the uncomfortable feeling they could somehow see the interface suit despite it being under his clothes. The integration appears successful, Elder Kareth observed. How do you feel, Tyler Grant? Like I'm wearing a second skin that's alive, Tyler admitted. But otherwise okay. The sensation will become familiar with time, Celine assured him. Soon you will notice it only when it is actively assisting you. Elder Kareth spread his massive wings, the golden scales catching the last light of day. I shall carry you to the shuttle. The neural interface will guide you on how to position yourself. As if on cue, Tyler felt a gentle pressure on his back, guiding him to turn around. The suit seemed to be directing his movements, suggesting rather than forcing. Raise your arms and prepare to be lifted, Arya instructed in his mind. Tyler did as instructed, feeling slightly ridiculous as he stood with his arms raised like a child waiting to be picked up. Elder Kareth moved behind him, and Tyler felt massive claws gently but firmly close around his torso, just under his arms. Remain calm, Arya said. The suit will distribute pressure and prevent discomfort. Before Tyler could respond, he felt himself being lifted into the air. There was a moment of pure terror as the ground fell away beneath his feet, but it quickly gave way to awe as he rose higher and higher, the lights of New Meridian spreading out below him. Elder Kareth's powerful wings beat steadily, carrying them upward with surprising smoothness. Veril and Celine flanked them, their own wings creating rhythmic patterns in the darkening sky. This is incredible, Tyler breathed, watching as the Martian landscape unfolded beneath them. From this height, he could see the entire settlement of New Meridian, its lights twinkling like a constellation against the rusty Martian soil. As they climbed higher, the air grew noticeably thinner and colder, but Tyler felt no discomfort. The suit adjusted automatically, maintaining a comfortable temperature and pressure. It was as if he were still on the ground, except for the spectacular view and the sensation of flight. They flew for nearly an hour, climbing steadily higher until the curvature of Mars was visible on the horizon. Finally, Elder Kareth banked toward what appeared to be a large, dark object hovering in the sky. As they drew closer, Tyler could make out the details of a ship unlike any he had seen before. It was massive, at least the size of a small Earth shuttle, but with an organic, flowing design that reminded him of the Draconis themselves. There were no visible engines or thrusters, just smooth, iridescent surfaces that shifted colors as they approached. A section of the hull seemed to dissolve, creating an opening large enough for the Draconis to enter while carrying Tyler. Elder Kareth flew directly into the opening, which sealed seamlessly behind them once Veril and Celine had entered as well. The interior of the shuttle was a single large chamber, with no chairs or conventional controls that Tyler could see. The walls pulsed with the same circuit-like patterns he had observed in the interface suit, though on a much larger scale. Elder Kareth gently set Tyler down on the floor, which felt oddly springy beneath his feet, almost like standing on living tissue. "Welcome to a Draconis short-range transport," Elder Kareth said. "We will reach Phobos within the hour." Tyler looked around in amazement. "This is not what I expected a spaceship to look like. Our approach to technology differs from humans," Celine explained. "We integrate biological and mechanical systems more fully." "Is this ship alive?" Tyler asked, noticing how the walls seemed to pulse in a rhythm reminiscent of a heartbeat. "Not in the way you conceptualize life," Veril said, "but it has organic components that function as part of the whole system. Your interface suit will allow you to connect with the ship's systems if you wish to experience it." Tyler wasn't sure he was ready for that yet. "Maybe later. Let's just focus on getting to Phobos for now." Elder Kareth made a gesture with one clawed hand, and the patterns on the walls changed, flowing into new configurations. Tyler felt a slight pressure as the ship began to move, though there was no sound of engines or sensation of acceleration. "The neural interface can provide a visual representation of our journey, if you desire," Arya offered in his mind. "Yes, show me," Tyler replied. A three-dimensional display appeared in his vision, showing the ship rising rapidly away from Mars. The red planet grew smaller beneath them as they ascended toward Phobos, which appeared as an irregular shape orbiting above. Tyler watched in fascination as the distance closed, the journey taking only minutes thanks to the ship's incredible speed. Soon, Phobos filled the virtual display, a lumpy, potato-shaped moon covered in craters and crevices. As they drew nearer, Tyler noticed something unexpected: structures on the surface of Phobos, extending from some of the larger craters. They had the same organic, flowing design as the ship, as if they had grown from the moon itself rather than being built upon it. The Draconis facility, Arya identified, a research and engineering complex established 15 years ago. The ship descended toward one of the larger structures, which opened like a flower to receive them. They passed through layers of what appeared to be energy fields rather than physical doors, finally coming to rest in a large hangar-like space. "We have arrived," Elder Kareth announced. "Welcome to Phobos, Tyler Grant. Welcome to your new beginning." As Tyler stepped off the ship onto the surface of Phobos, he felt a strange mix of terror and exhilaration. He had left behind everything familiar to venture into the unknown, to work with technology beyond human understanding. Yet as he looked at the alien environment around him, at the three Draconis who had brought him here, he felt not regret, but anticipation. This was why he had come to Mars in the first place, to challenge himself, to grow beyond the boundaries of his previous life. Now he was taking that journey one step further, becoming perhaps the first human to truly collaborate with the Draconis on their terms, with their technology. "Ready?" Veril asked, moving to his side. Tyler nodded, a smile spreading across his face despite his nervousness. "Ready." Together, they moved deeper into the facility, toward a future that neither humans nor Draconis had imagined possible just a few days earlier, all because a human mechanic had found two dragons tangled in his shop, and had the courage and curiosity to help them. And that was the end of the story. If you listened all the way to here, don't forget to leave feedback about what you thought of the story in the comments, whether positive or negative. Your feedback helps us improve. Also, leave your like and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this one. And I'll leave here on the screen another video that I'm sure you'll like. Big hug, and see you in the next story.